What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the third installment of What If Deku Was Isekai'd into the Narutoverse. Now, quick thing, this video will also not be edited due to the fact that I'm still looking for an editor. So if you are interested, then please do make sure to contact me with my email down below in the comment section, or Discord or Instagram will do. That being said, until the channel finds a permanent editor, these videos will continue to be made with simple gameplay in the background, and with that all out of the way, I think it's a good time for us to get started with today's story. That being said, let's get into it.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
We pick our story right back up the second that we'd left on the previous part. So, just like I had established, Deku, Naruto, Sasuke, as well as Kakashi would all be making their way back to Konoha. Now, when they are all making their way back, Naruto would be extremely happy at the fact that Sasuke and Deku did not die in the battle on the bridge. However, one thing that Naruto just can't seem to get out of his head is the visions that keep playing inside of his head. The vision of Naruto brutally killing Haku in cold blood. Now, while Haku and Zabuza may have been the enemies, Naruto cannot take it out of his mind that he took somebody's life. And even though Naruto is living in the ninja world and a place where it's either be killed or kill someone else, Naruto simply can't overlook this simple fact, because at this point, Naruto was still never taken a life from anybody. And this is something that is going to be relatively hard for Naruto to come to grips with. Naruto is struggling with this dilemma in his head, and this will be something that pretty much creates a roadblock in Naruto's psyche for the next couple of days to come, maybe a month, maybe for the rest of the story, who knows. But anyways, following this, the team would end up making their way back to Konoha. Naruto would remain quiet, while Deku would simply try to talk to Naruto the entire way, and Kakashi would notice this and pretty much not really address this. But one thing that he definitely would address to the team is the fact that they all need to get stronger a lot faster, and that once they arrive to Konoha, they will simply be meeting up with Hiruzen, and afterwards all of them can go back and unwind. However, the day after that, they're going to be needing to meet with Kakashi. So that's pretty much how everything goes. They would arrive back to Konoha, report to Hiruzen, and tell him that the mission was a success. They would all be then paid with a B rank mission due to the fact that the mission actually turned out to be a lot harder than what it was originally anticipated, and so the team would receive higher payment. That being said, one good thing that would come out of everything is that Konohamaru didn't actually know Naruto in this version, and so there is no real encounter between Gaara or Team 7. None of that ends up going down this time around, and instead the team simply gets to go back, relax, and unwind. Nothing at all ends up going down this time. The very next day, however, Kakashi would end up meeting back with Team 7, and it is here where Kakashi would end up discussing with Team 7 the events that are coming very, very soon. The Chunin exams, telling Team 7 that they pretty much from this day have approximately 2 weeks in order to get prepared for the Chunin exams. And with this being said, what would end up happening is that the team would end up deciding that they all definitely need to get into their A game. Not only that, but Kakashi seeing this block for Naruto mentally would actually end up taking Naruto to the side following the events of informing Team 7. He would end up pretty much telling Naruto that in the world of being a shinobi, there will be moments where Naruto will be forced to take lives, with Kakashi looking at his own hands and pretty much seeing his own hands covered in blood, before then looking back at Naruto and telling him that he will potentially never forget the lives that he's taken. However, he needs to move past it and not let these things become a crutch for him, because if they do, then the next life that could be laid on the line would be his own, and not the life of his enemies. That him doing that would have ultimately costed the team to be saved, and had Naruto not been there, the team may not have made it out alive. Naruto is a key asset to the team, and Naruto would look at Kakashi before looking back down at the ground, accepting the words that are coming out of Kakashi's mouth. Following this, the team would then be dismissed, with Naruto thinking about Kakashi's words, and Kakashi's charisma as well as the way that he approached Naruto would ultimately end up getting into Naruto. And this would cause Naruto to calm down in terms of the things that he was thinking before. When Naruto would arrive back home to Deku, he would end up pretty much having his go-lucky smile, kind of forcing it at first before naturally Naruto would start forgetting more and more. Now, following the 2 weeks, Kakashi would actually take the time out of his day to train Team 7 and actually teach them a couple of things before the Chunin exams events actually start. So, Kakashi would actually end up training Deku, Sasuke, and Naruto. Would have actually ended up teaching them a little bit about more chakra basics, and this time he would end up actually teaching them how to water walk. So now the team knows how to water walk, and not only that, but Kakashi would have actually ended up teaching them about the principles of their chakra natures and what their affinities are. Obviously, we know Sasuke's is fire, Naruto's is wind, and Deku's is actually going to be water. That's going to be his nature affinity. Yep, water, because he's a crybaby. So, you know, if we link that and that, he can just cry somebody to tears. Like, he could cry literal ocean. So I think that giving Deku water affinity just suits his character so much. Not only that, but it just seems so cool to me, and it always seems to me as if nobody really has water affinity other than Tobirama and Kisame. So I kind of wanted to spice things up a bit. That being said, the team would pretty much end up all learning a little bit more about their chakra affinities, and Naruto would learn a couple more wind style jutsus, learning more and more about chakra natures and stuff along those lines. Kakashi would also end up improving Team 7's overall taijutsu skills and also helping them when it comes to not using a lot of chakra when they're using their jutsus. Kakashi would actually end up noticing that when it comes to talent, Sasuke has that in handfuls. Like, he has that in huge amounts. Naruto has raw physical strength, and he also has the gift of being the son of Minato, something that only he himself knows, so he's already a prodigy. But not only that, Naruto also is the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed beast. With that, what Deku has going for him is something a little bit different, but it's still special nonetheless. Deku is a very smart kid, and with the right amount of tutelage, Deku could go on to become a very powerful asset for the team. So what Kakashi would focus on when it comes to Deku is having Deku hone more on his intelligence skills as well as analytical abilities when it comes to battling. He would also end up telling Deku that he definitely does need to focus more on his taijutsu ability, because while he does have the thought process to get through a battle, he doesn't know if Deku would have the actual raw power to actually survive another battle the likes of which he encountered when it comes to Deku and Sasuke fighting against Haku. Oh, and one more quick thing. On the previous part, I had actually stated that Naruto would have used the multi-shadow clone jutsu. That is a complete error on my part, and I do deeply apologize for that, because I never quite ended up explaining how Naruto even pulled out the shadow clones in the first place. So now is where I think I should probably explain this. Kakashi would have ended up noticing that it takes Naruto a strenuous amount during the bell test area of things, and he would have actually ended up teaching Naruto the ability of the multi-shadow clone jutsu. It's something that I completely forgot to and completely overlooked, but now that I'm addressing it, this is more of a valid reason as to why he would have it. Am I including this because it's simply convenient to me and I don't want to change the way that I made the story? Yes. Is it working? Probably. Anyways though, getting back into the story, the team would then work more and more on the things that they all need to pretty much single-handedly work on, and Kakashi would actually end up being a better sensei than in the original, actually being more fulfilled when it comes to Team 7. Following this, all of them would actually end up having their own trials when it comes to the Chunin exams arc, and they would all pass, like immediately passing. So after all of this would end up going down, the team would then pretty much end up having nothing else to do but reporting to the Chunin exams. And so they would all make their way towards the Genin Tower before Team 7 promptly meets up and then begins walking towards the room. When they get near it, Sasuke, Naruto, and Deku would all notice the Genjutsu barrier, and all of them abruptly pretty much end up walking by it before snickering, thinking to themselves that Genjutsu was extremely weak. This is when Team 10 or Team Guy would actually end up arriving, and he would actually end up telling the teams that, no, not the teams, but he would actually end up informing Lee would actually come into the picture and begin pretty much challenging Sasuke, saying that he knows Sasuke's strong and he wishes to battle him. This pretty much ends up going almost similar to canon. He completely ends up ignoring Naruto and Deku. Naruto just kind of feels like Sasuke is just completely getting more of the upper hand. Deku is just like, damn, like not even gonna acknowledge me, thinking to himself that he needs to work harder. And Naruto just kind of is like, listen here, Lee, you're gonna fight me first. And so Lee would pretty much end up saying, Naruto, I am sorry, but I do not wish to battle you now. I will fight you in the tuning exams if we do get the privilege. And then Sasuke would end up thinking to himself that this is going to be fun, before Rock Lee would suggest that they only use taijutsu, and Sasuke would end up pretty much rushing in at Lee before Lee would completely dismantle Sasuke. Regardless of the 2-week extra training that Kakashi gave to Sasuke, that is going to do absolutely nothing when it comes to fighting against Rock Lee. Sasuke was way more than just 2 weeks back when in terms of combat and physical prowess when it comes to Rock Lee and Sasuke. So Sasuke still unfortunately ends up losing, even when he does eventually activate his Sharingan. And so that all pretty much ends up going to canon. Deku would, however, take note of the fact that Neji seemed to be very powerful. Not only that, but the way that Lee actually carried himself made it seem as if Neji was actually the strongest one of the team. So Deku would definitely take note of this before helping Sasuke up, telling him not to worry about things and that they'll get stronger than them in no time. Sasuke would end up kind of gritting his teeth before saying, I don't need to hear any of that. And Naruto would end up saying, well, at least he said something like that. If I would have been the one to pick you up, I would have told you something like this. Before Deku stops Naruto before saying something like that he was about to say. And Sasuke pretty much grits his teeth before walking towards the place where they were all going to inevitably meet Kabuto. They would all meet him, and that pretty much goes just like it does in canon. Deku being there doesn't really change much, and when it comes to the written portion, Deku being there again does not change much, because Naruto would still end up pretty much answering like 2 questions this time around. However, when it comes to the final question, he would still say that he's not going to give up, believe it, that it's his dream to become the Hokage, and that he's not going to be giving up due to some dumb question. And so, Team 7 would advance to the next part of the Chunin exams, the Forest of Death. Once they're in the Forest of Death, Anko would come in before then beginning to explain to everybody the rules of the Forest of Death, telling them all that they need to sign waivers because some of them are probably going to die. And so everybody would do so, and Deku, seeing this waiver, would pretty much have fear in his heart. This is one of the very first moments where Deku is completely unsure of like what's about to go down, because Deku understands that the ninja world isn't as pretty as the society that he came from. He came from a place where, heroes didn't kill. He came from a place where he was taught good and evil, and he came from a different society overall where killing was viewed more as like the most like the harshest punishable crime. And Deku, seeing the fact that he could literally die if he signs this paper, would feel genuine fear. Naruto, however, would actually end up explaining to Deku not to worry, that he promised to keep him safe, and that Sasuke here will even do his own part. Sasuke would look away before kind of nodding, and then Deku would finally find some resolve within himself as he then signs the paper, and the team would then rush into the the Chunin exams, right? So the team would make it about 10 minutes in before Naruto finally ends up saying, I gotta go take a leak. At this point, Deku would end up saying that, there's no real reason for Naruto to go off so far. So Naruto would end up actually staying closer to the team, just kind of turning away to a nearby tree before then just whipping it out and letting it hang. Oh my, let my, you guys fill in the blanks, all right? Anyways, so Deku would pretty much just be like whistling as Sasuke is like, he couldn't have gone elsewhere to do that. And Naruto would finally wrap up before they eventually encounter a grass ninja from the land hidden in the grass, Orochimaru in disguise, obviously. He would end up pretty much acting as if he was no, he wouldn't actually even act as if he was Naruto, due to the fact that Naruto stayed by and there's no way that they were going to confuse him that way. So instead, Orochimaru ultimately delivers the fact that he is, a ninja who is going to try to take the scroll from them. Orochimaru would end up releasing a bunch of bloodlust before Sasuke and the rest of the team would be just completely engulfed with absolute fear. Sasuke would then try to actually hand him their scroll and saying that, this is all they need to do, before Naruto was extremely angry, and his fear is then overcome by a simple anger before Naruto catches the scroll midair, saying that they're not going to be sacrificing everything they've worked for so far. It's 3 of them and 1 of him. They can do it. He would then look at Sasuke before punching him right in the face and saying, get your stuff together. We don't have time to be messing around acting as if we're scared. The Kage's not gonna have a ninja like you around, so step it up, Sasuke. You're one of the last Uchihas, so show the power of your clan's might. Sasuke would get up before looking at Naruto with an angry expression, before then thinking back to what he was about to do, smiling and then looking at Naruto before saying, "You're right, Naruto, I was a fool," before he then activates his Sharingan and then hits Naruto across the head saying, "Now come on, dope." Deku would be standing behind both of them before then suddenly saying that there's nothing that he could do anyways to stop them, so he might as well help them out. Deku would then begin to weave hand signs very quickly as he then causes a huge amount of water to blast out of his mouth, engulfing the area. Every single one of them would end up jumping to the top of the trees, and Orochimaru would look at Deku as he says, "Interesting, an affinity for water style," before Orochimaru then rushes in at Sasuke's direction saying, "Your body will be mine." Sasuke would jump out of the way. Naruto would come in with a punch, which would actually land barely, scratching Orochimaru's face, causing Orochimaru to lick his wound and then think, "Awesome power." Before Naruto then pretty much starts trying to rush in again, but then immediately gets overwhelmed. Deku, seeing this, would jump in to try to catch his brother as Sasuke rushes in, and Orochimaru begins to completely outclass him and the rest of their teammates. And so Team 7 would ultimately get pretty much destroyed by Orochimaru. Even when Sasuke activates his Sharingan, it's absolutely no contest. And as soon as Orochimaru decides that he's going to pretty much end it all, this is when all of them would end up coming to grips with the fact that this is a battle they're not going to win. All of them would be filled with fear, but Naruto would see his brother just feeling trembling. Naruto seeing Deku tremble in fear in front of him, Naruto would feel this rage proceed to boil within himself, as he would think, if only I had more power. This is when Naruto would end up pretty much be taken into a different plane of existence, seeing a gigantic fox behind a cage, as Naruto pretty much ends up seeing this quick vision, and Kurama would actually end up offering Naruto his power in exchange for control. But Deku would end up looking at Naruto, as Naruto was about to pretty much end up bumping fists with him. Deku would come in and pretty much shake Naruto saying, "Naruto, Naruto," before Naruto then abruptly wakes back into reality, and he decides that that was definitely not the best course of action. At this point, however, a bit of Kurama's chakra would have seeped out, and the chakra cloak would envelop Naruto. At this point, Deku would end up saying that whatever happens, happens, and that he was glad he knew his brother, before then rushing in at Orochimaru, and Sasuke would do the same. Naruto would do this, and all three of them would rush in at Orochimaru's direction. At this point, Sasuke would end up landing a fireball style jutsu before melting Orochimaru's disguise off and revealing to the team who was truly under the mask. As soon as Orochimaru's identity is revealed, the team would see as they're like, "No way." Deku would be the one to recognize who that is, and he would say, "It's one of the legendary Sannin, Orochimaru," before then saying, "What are you doing here?" Orochimaru, after hearing this, would say, "It appears I have been recognized by one of you. It appears at least one of you is competent enough to realize when you're completely outclassed." Before Orochimaru would then pretty much end up weaving a bunch of quick hand signs and shooting a bunch of snakes at their direction. Naruto would end up pretty much saying that he got this before weaving hand signs and pretty much creating a wall of nothing but shadow clones, blocking all the snakes from getting to them. Before Sasuke would jump up into the air and weave hand signs for a pretty powerful fire attack that would actually cause all the snakes to be taken out. It's at this moment that the battle would pretty much be a lot more elongated than it was in canon, and Orochimaru at this point would decide that enough is enough. He's wasted enough time, and if he waits anymore, then he might not even get to make the curse mark appear on Sasuke's neck. So what Orochimaru would do is rush in, and he would immediately proceed to hit Deku and just completely knock Deku completely out. Naruto, seeing this, would completely lose his self-awareness before a full tail would appear behind Naruto, and Naruto would let out an animalistic roar. Orochimaru, seeing this, would turn to the side before Naruto comes in and clocks Orochimaru straight in the jaw. Orochimaru getting hit by this attack would be sent flying backwards before Naruto then rushes in on all fours in an animalistic primitive nature. Orochimaru, seeing this, would think that that's no good, before he then catches Naruto mid-air and says, "You're still not powerful enough, QB," before he then seals it with the 5-pronged seal, and he then looks at Sasuke, as he will say, "Someday you'll search for me in search of power, but that day is still not here. Think about things," before he then stretches his neck out and bites down on Sasuke's neck. He would then end up leaving his own scroll there, and the team would end up pretty much being pretty much all unconscious. Naruto's knocked out, Deku's knocked out, and Sasuke's knocked out. Approximately an hour later, Lee would actually end up being very close by to the area, and he would end up noticing that Naruto, Sasuke, and Deku were all just completely knocked out, before Lee ends up gathering them all and then pretty much placing them all in a similar area. Eventually, Deku would be the first to wake up, for thanking Lee and telling him that the last thing he remembers was Orochimaru, before then thinking to himself, "Orochimaru's in the Chunin exams, we need to inform Hiruzen." At this point, Lee would end up asking what does he mean, before Deku explains his entire situation to him, and Deku says that must have been some experience, having to fight against the legendary Sannin, saying that must have been so cool. Deku at this point would think that they're just lucky to be alive, before then telling Lee thank you for everything and informing him that he could handle the rest from here, telling Lee that he'll be happy to fight him in the Chunin exams. Lee would nod his head before then leaving, and Deku would actually end up thinking that he needs to get them to the Chunin exams tower ASAP. So he would create a shadow clone after about 2 hours of recuperating his chakra, and then he would rush with Sasuke and Naruto on his back towards the tower, where he would end up meeting Kakashi, and Kakashi would perform the sealing technique on Sasuke's curse mark. However, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys do want to be seeing a part 4 of this amazing series, then you guys are actually going to be needing to go down below into the comments and letting me know by commenting #Isekai'd Deku. All one word, okay? Not only that, but also leaving a like would help greatly in terms of showing your support for the series. And if you guys haven't liked the previous 2 parts, definitely go back and do so, because it greatly helps with the videos in the algorithm. That being said, thank you so much for your time today. It has been your boy Zether, and I am out. I love you guys. Peace.